You ever think about the hidden gems in your favorite artist's collection? The albums that kind of slip through the cracks, but when you find them, they're just quiet masterpieces? Well, today we're going to dive into the story of one of those records, an album from a legendary band that honestly might just be their best work, even though almost nobody heard it when it came out.
I mean, seriously, think about that for a second. What if a famous band, a band you know and love, puts out their most timeless, most enduring album, and it just completely flies under the radar? That's exactly the scenario we're going to unpack today with one of the biggest Japanese bands of the 90s.
All right, so let's set the scene. If you were around buying CDs in late 90s Japan, you absolutely knew the Brilliant Green. They were a massive deal. Their whole vibe was this lush, alternative rock-infused sound that pretty much defined that era. They were, in a word, huge.
Okay, but you know how it goes. Fast forward to the 2010s, and the whole musical landscape has just changed. The band was still doing their thing, but the public's attention, the media spotlight, it had definitely moved on to something a little more flashy.
And that shift brings us to our first big point here, the flashy solo era. See, while the Brilliant Green was taking a bit of a step back, their vocalist, Tomogo Kawase, was off creating a pop phenomenon all by herself, and this would totally change how people saw her music.
And wow, the contrast was just stark. On one side, you've got the Brilliant Green, kind of moody, layered, at its heart, a rock band. And on the other side, you've got her solo persona, Tommy February 16, a pure, high-concept, super flashy pop project built around this really quirky character. Two totally different worlds.
And that solo stuff got so popular, so distinct, that when the Brilliant Green finally came back with a new album in 2014, well, most people just weren't paying attention. The stage was perfectly set for a masterpiece to get totally lost in the shuffle.
Which brings us right to the album at the heart of our story. This was their understated return, the one that many people now argue is the band's most enduring work ever.
So, when this album finally drops, what was the initial reaction? The source we're looking at sums it up with one single, very potent Japanese word: Jimmy. Now, at first glance, that might sound like a bit of an insult.
But let's break that down. Jimmy doesn't mean bad or boring. It means plain, simple, understated. It's the literal opposite of flashy. And for this album, that was a totally deliberate artistic choice. It was them rejecting all that pop gloss that was so popular at the time.
So the album is called The Swinging Sixties, and it came out in 2014. But here's the kicker. Look closer at the type. It's a self-cover album. Instead of new songs, they decided to go back and completely re-record their classic hits. And that decision, right there, is the key to its understated genius.
So if the album wasn't flashy, what was it? This is where we get to the real core of its genius. The sound wasn't just plain, it was something way more profound, a quality that's best described by another fantastic Japanese word, shibui.
You see, that first impression of Jimmy, that plainness, that was just the surface. As you actually listen, it evolves into something else entirely. And the word that really captures the album's unique appeal is shibui.
Shibui describes this mature, refined, subtle kind of cool. It's a beauty that doesn't have to shout for attention. It's confident, it's tasteful, and it's absolutely timeless. It's the sound of a band that has absolutely nothing left to prove.
So how did they even get this shibui sound? Well, the recipe was actually pretty simple. It came down to 3 key steps. First, they stripped all their hits down to their simple alt-rock core. Second, they ditched those gorgeous, really complex backtracks from the original 90s recordings. And third, all that simplification put Tomoko Kawase's vocals right in the spotlight, just raw and clear.
And you can hear this new approach all over their biggest hits. Songs like There Will Be Love There and Hello Another Way got brand new life breathed into them. And on tracks like Tumatai Hana, the vocals became grittier, more rock-infused. This wasn't about nostalgia, it was about finding the timeless heart of every single one of those songs.
And all of this leads to the album's real legacy. I mean, why are we talking about this overlooked record from 2014 right now? It's because its understated nature is exactly what gives it its lasting power.
The result of this whole shibui approach is a collection of songs that honestly feel more timeless than the originals ever did. By stripping away all the kind of dated 90s production, the band uncovered something classic underneath, a sound that feels like it was designed to last for a very, very long time.
And that brings us to why it's a true hidden gem. Because so few people were paying attention back then, the album is now incredibly rare. The special edition, with its 7-inch style jacket, it's basically a holy grail for collectors that almost never ever shows up for sale.
The conclusion is pretty simple, and the source says it best.
If you own a copy of the Swinging Sixties, you are lucky. You have a piece of music history that was just hiding in plain sight, a quiet masterpiece from a legendary band.
And that really makes you think, doesn't it? What forgotten album is just sitting on your shelf or buried deep in a playlist that deserves another listen? What's the secret masterpiece hiding in your own collection?